This is the first episode of Tim to the Power of Two, and we're just here to, pontificate, spread conjecture.
Pontificate, if you will.
Yes, pontificate. Let's make that viable. Attach a hashtag to that shit. Spread the word about this amazing podcast. What are we here to talk about today then, Tall Tim?
Today we're talking about welfare. It seems to be a big issue, and there seems to be a loss of actual theory on welfare. There seems to be a mix-up nowadays with like how people view welfare. Of course, now welfare is just another dirty word for lazy people who just want to live and party at the same time and watch video podcasts all day.
Yeah, like I guess
audience.
Welfare is always like now more than ever it seems like a very big issue, more of a loaded term. Like something I've noticed is that you've seen this change from using the term of welfare to entitlements now. So that was another one that got me. Last time I checked, if you paid into a system and then you use it for some time, I'm not too sure if those are necessarily entitlements. But before we go into all those things, we just wanted to explore the origins of welfare. And I guess, of course, myself, if you can't really tell my Queen's English, my posh accent, I'm from the UK, and we've got a American here.
I'm from cowboy land.
What do you think? How did welfare kind of initially come about? What do you think?
Welfare has always kind of been at the basis of human society, I think. But we started to build it more into the idea of the nation state once that formed. And I think once welfare moved away from being something that churches had.
Like charity.
Sorry, so churches at first, they provided some sort of charity to society. But once, for example, Europe became more secularized, it became more part of the nation state, as opposed to just being part of the holy state. And eventually, it became a way after public education and after road building and all of these nation state type activities. There was the post office, for example.
Yeah.
We wouldn't call that welfare nowadays. So we're kind of just sticking with modern welfare, like social security, unemployment, food stamps, these types of originally what were safety nets.
Yes.
What were safety nets for people who were down on their luck. They weren't necessarily a permanent fix for poverty.
Yeah, and that does have us wondering, because it would have seemed that the origins of welfare was, Tim was saying, the idea of a safety net. In the UK, we have something called the National Insurance Scheme, which is a tax that you pay to help fund the welfare state, in essence. And you kind of hear it in that choice of wording, like the National Insurance Scheme. It was almost seen like a national insurance policy that you take out on yourself by paying taxes. It was like savings that you drawed into to help coast you over the hard times. But then it seems like somewhere along the lines, it's expanded from that role of coasting you over and helping you weather the storm to, just actually almost taking care of you and, providing you with a situation where there are people who haven't worked in decades, but somehow they're able to sustain that lifestyle. They haven't worked in decades, yet they have, an apartment or a house or a car. They have these privileges afforded to them without working. And it seems like there is the potential. You have that possibility now with the welfare state.
It's weird, because when you say that, we could have easily just been talking about trust fund babies as well.
Trust fund babies. So elaborate on this term. I'm not familiar with it. I don't think I want myself.
Yeah, right. Yes. So it's these children of wealthy people who get their own fund this own trust fund that when they reach a certain age or do something in particular, for one of my friends it was join the military, which was a strange one. But after that they get money and they get to live pretty comfortably. They don't necessarily have to work.
Yeah. Why don't they just receive regular payments?
Well, they just have money there.
Yeah.
And they don't, this isn't necessarily gaming the system in the same way as welfare.
Yeah, like
it goes into this point about people who are wealthy and game the system.
But how's being a trust fund baby gaming the system?
It's not really. It's just like, you're living very comfortably, but you're not working for it. And I think that this philosophy of people manipulating the system definitely is much worse. It's much worse to game the government to live comfortably, obviously. Yeah. Like if your great-great-grandfather worked for it very hard and he's an oil tycoon, like that's great. You can.
I guess they were just the lucky ones to be born into that position.
Absolutely.
While some were born into that position where they can, live off of other people's money, there are some others who have to find another way of doing it. And for many, they believe that's, through the welfare system, courtesy of the taxpayer.
Live that way. But I wanted this to lead into the conversation about the interesting dialogue that goes on, because at the same time, while you have this possibility of people on welfare gaming the system,
yes,
you also have these wealthier people who are gaming the system. They're lobbying the government for tax cuts that benefit them, that benefit their interests. Is this system that helps a few wealthy people with a lot of money worse or better than this system that not few but some people abuse?
So that's essentially
to get little amounts of money.
Yeah, like it's the cost of welfare fraud, for example. People claiming more than they deserve or gaming the welfare system. Is it more of a cost to the US taxpayer than what you get with tax avoidance and tax evasion, which,
Apple paying 0% tax rates. Apple and Amazon and these different companies. They're the biggest companies in the
using the idea of, basing their head office in the Republic of Ireland or, some random tax haven as a way of avoiding paying taxes in different countries where they make most of their money. Because that is the one that baffles me the most, is Amazon in particular, the fact that they barely pay any taxes, to the US government, but then, they essentially produce nothing. They're a company which is based on processing things. It's a delivery service, and a crucial part of their, them delivering things is having reliable, good quality roads and bridges and infrastructure, courtesy of the US taxpayer. So you want to use these services to make you billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in sales revenue,
and then not pay for it.
And then not pay for it. Like even there was a story the other day, a headline I saw with regards to Apple, and in response to the recent tax cuts made, cutting corporate tax from 35 to 21%, they've announced that they're going to repatriate $38 billion of profit. $38 billion of money that was hiding in some random offshore account in Switzerland or wherever it was. They're going to bring that back into the USA, and it's like, that is money that should have been paid in taxes. And that's just one company, $38 billion. Like, I'm sure if you run these numbers, I mean,
You could pay for a lot of welfare fraud with that $38 billion. You could pay for several people to commit welfare fraud, let's say that.
So are we going to be more focused on the odd person who's trying to cheat a couple extra thousands of dollars, or the company that's
the largest companies in America? You know,
that's a good point.
And then, well, looking at Amazon, they're making the move to automate. So they're not even getting these workers, which goes against the philosophy of why we're giving them tax cuts in the first place.
Yeah.
Which is because they're the job creators and what have you. The same thing would go for Apple. I'm sure that once they reinvest that $38 billion, that it'll go towards creating like an automated factory that puts these like very skilled workers in Seattle out of work.
That's when you get the US Carrier, what's it, that company?
Yeah, the Carrier.
US Carrier, the company that Trump gave tax breaks to
in
return for keeping jobs within the USA, not having them be outsourced to Mexico.
And then they just automated it.
Exactly. Apparently, the jobs he claimed to save, that number was much lower, and more of those jobs are either going to Mexico or being automated away. So how much of that is going to be reinvested in the economy and fulfill its purpose of creating good quality paying jobs? Or how much of that is going to be invested into automation, which can reduce the company's payroll and further increase their profit margins? I'm not too sure.
There's this whole argument for capitalism that is basically like, oh, it's just natural. It's just like the natural way.
Yeah.
Competition and struggle is the way of nature, and so capitalism reflects that. I think one of the more meta theories about welfare is that because we're humans and we're somehow distinct from nature, we don't really know how, but we're distinct from nature.
Yeah.
We can create we can consciously create systems that benefit our own society.
Humanity. Let's be humane.
Let's be humane. Let's be like Denmark and give college tuition.
Let's work beyond natural selection.
Absolutely.
Would you say?
Let's hold our brothers and sisters up on our shoulder. Well, we have this like natural system of capitalism, as it were, a natural system. We also have ways to bring everyone up. We can lift everyone else up with us. Granted that there's some who will use this as their advantage, because it's easier to to take advantage of a system like this than it is to take part in it.
The system,
which makes sense.
Like you're saying, a capitalist system or a welfare system?
Well, the social programs, the welfare.
Yes, yeah.
So, yes, it's easier to do that. But once we get to this point where we're securing people's future, then we won't need to do this. Because how often does welfare fraud happen in, say, these welfare states like Denmark?
Yeah.
Are
Sweden.
people just Sweden, exactly, Norway? Are people just going to college just to skate by? People seem more determined if they're going to a university than if they're just getting food stamps. They have that option, but I think that as a society they're a bit more driven together, which is the whole point. We should all be progressing forward together, which is not what's taking place with corporate welfare and these handful of manipulators of otherwise welfare, like Social Security.
Which and in their own way they work to indirectly defund the federal government in terms of rob them of the funds that they can use to reinvest in the economy and help it to become more productive and efficient. And it's interesting you make that point. We talk about the Scandinavian states, the perfect Scandinavian states that lefties always like to draw on whenever they're talking about, trying to justify some, next socialist policies. These seeming utopias or Xanadu's, what have you. And I remember, a while ago, when I was a young man, in high school, I remember, sitting on my own in the library, reading an economist article, thinking that I'm more high and mighty and better than everyone else. And they actually did a spread of what you were talking about, where they went, looking at the data, it seems like the countries that have harsher, less generous welfare benefits, such as the United Kingdom and the USA, compared to Sweden or Denmark, for example, seem to be worse off in terms of like unemployment and
even
lower employment levels, crime, these different type of things. And their argument at the time, I don't think they really went into detail surrounding the argument, but I think the idea that people would say is that in countries such as Denmark and Sweden, because maybe the governments play a more active role in taming the markets. You have different regulations on wages, trade unions play a stronger role, and because of that, even if you're working at like a supermarket or you're doing very simple jobs, you still get paid relatively high wages. So even though you do have generous welfare benefits, a lot of the jobs that you have in the economy are just very well paid, relatively speaking, and therefore, no matter how generous you make them to some extent, people prefer to work because the work that they're in pays them better. Whereas, I don't know, we can say the same for some other countries, like the USA, or for example.
When countries invest in their citizens, I think that it's a bigger stance. It's saying like, I want to provide for you in the future. I'm invested in you because I know that it'll pay off, and at least statistically that's true in these Scandinavian utopian countries, in places where they put money into not just like welfare, but education, into healthcare.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to take some of that burden off, that initial burden. So it's definitely a long-term investment. If the US started to do this right now, it would be like, it wouldn't be instant. It wouldn't be like an instantaneous gain, which is what a lot of people have problems with.
Yes.
Because they want to see it tomorrow.
The instant gratification with the instant
of
gratification
the economy.
generation.
So the big part about investing in your citizenry is also that you're investing in the changing world. Because we're no longer in great dire needs of unskilled, low-paid manufacturing jobs. We need people who have undergraduate degrees and master's degrees, who can do these super technical, very skilled, and even creative jobs.
So like working with that in terms of what you were saying, like I agree with Tim in the sense that when we look at a lot of people, what the welfare state has become, at least in the UK where I'm from, we have a situation where there are different parts of the country, parts of northern England, some parts of London and many other different cities, where you get these former industrial towns that had, one particular industry, whether it was in steel, coal, automobiles, that would be their kind of main earner of income and provider of jobs. And now those industries are not there to the same degree. And you go to these places and you just find, you find significantly more people on welfare, and it's reaching a point where there are generations, you have families where across 2 or even 3 generations, there's hardly anyone in work. And I'm not too sure if I'd say they're trying to game the system. That's always a kind of tricky line to tread on. But what's kind of led to that situation? Because there was a time in the past where, back when those industrial towns were around, where it was not like that. Hardly anyone was on welfare. But now, it's not common, but it's not rare to find somebody who is able-bodied and is able to work. who hasn't worked for 5, 10, even 20 years? What's led us to that situation?
I mean, when you're talking about this deindustrialization, I think that it is this
The
changing
deindustrialization, yeah.
this deindustrialized society that we're moving towards in America and the UK. We're talking about this change of pace in the way that the workers needed have to be when they get hired. So they have to be educated. They can't just be like coming out of high school in order to you know, move a lever all day. They need a bit more education.
Or a different skill set, would you say?
Absolutely, like a different skill set. They need to be able to speak computer programming language, like speak, not physically, but like using it. They need to be able, like this is a huge requirement that's greatly overlooked when we're talking about the younger generation. There will come a point where programming is basically required for most jobs, but then we don't have that infrastructure to support it. And I see like these towns that you're talking about with these generations of people who haven't worked.
Yeah.
Like I see that as an effect of
Likewise, yeah.
just moving where the money is and not really thinking about like what would happen. But then at the same time, while these entire cities are being shut down from factories, they're getting displaced because of work, but they're not moving. They become like this ammo for that entire movement of like super capitalism, like ultra.
Okay.
What's the school? Austrian Chicago type of thought, because
Chicago
now we have the Rust Belt. The Rust Belt in America that swayed heavily for Trump because he paid attention to them, I guess. He basically just said what they've been told this whole time, which is like, we need these jobs back. Like, no, you don't need manufacturing back. You guys need to get more, a different skill set. You guys need to train your children, and that was the ideal situation, because you had all of these like great jobs. They were coming in, they were making cars, there was steel, there was lots of coal jobs as well. In these manufacturing and unskilled labor industries like coal and car manufacturing, there was perceived job security, that these jobs would always be there, even if it like took a different shape. They would always have these generations of workers who could pass down these skills. And I think that they missed the point, which was you're supposed to work to get your child to a better place. This just didn't happen, because then automation came in kind of pretty much unexpectedly and put a lot of people out of work as the system works, because the people making money want to make more money.
Yeah.
Simply put, like who doesn't want to make more money? And so like they saw it as an opportunity, like a huge investment in automation right now, and then you don't have to pay the workers. So why care about them?
Yep, and I think building on that, so like Tim's saying, you're getting the issue of deindustrialization, and then to further exacerbate like the issues that you're experiencing in these Rust Belt towns and states. You then get automation on top of that. You're getting this situation where, as deindustrialization happens, you know, the new type of unskilled, low-level entry jobs and work have transformed from being at an assembly line and doing your role, you know, carrying out your job within that, to things such as working at a call center, being a receptionist, being a cashier at Walmart, a sales assistant. It's become a lot more, it's transformed, it's moved into the service sector, and jobs in the service sector in turn require a different skill set. It becomes less about your technical capacity or you being in, you know, the right health and physical shape, to your communication skills, your ability to use computers, sales ability, your familiarity with the internet, all of these different things. And you have this generation of people, there's some are, you know, it's more common in the older generations But then you also have a case where in poorer households, a lot of them coincidentally usually are the ones on welfare who maybe they don't have a computer at home, or their schools are underfunded and they're not able to hone in on those skills that are needed for the new economy.
For the new economy, I mean, it opens a lot of doors, but it keeps a lot of people shut out because there is a digital divide that spans across age for the older generation, for the baby boomers, but also on the class level for poorer people who can't afford smartphones or computers at home. It greatly affects the way that they'll enter the job force. Without the infrastructure of social programs in general, as well as welfare, to encourage this type of movement into better jobs, not just like service industry jobs, these MIC jobs. When you have all of these infrastructures that are available, but also the importance of reconfiguring them, we come into kind of an issue, but we also need to see that as a way to build past the issue and to overhaul the system. And I think, Tim, this was one of your ideas there.
Yeah, so
touch up on it.
It's like this situation whereby, like we were saying before, the economy has transformed. It's come from being based in the secondary industry and manufacturing jobs into the tertiary sector, services, different services, whether they're financial or they're based on, just sales. And you have a situation where, for many of these people who have spent decades or have spent extended periods of time on welfare, not working, there are jobs out there for them. The jobs are there, but they just don't necessarily have the appropriate skill set for them. I think what we need to kind of move on from is, like Tim was saying, is working to overhaul that welfare system, because I feel like right now we're in a situation where we're just throwing money at the problem and just hoping to keep people content, to shut up the mass unemployed and the what you call the underclass now, instead of actually going one step further and going, hey, these are the tools that you need in terms of computer skills, communication skills, customer service. These are like the buzzwords right now that are the keys to unlocking many different jobs for you. Like, more resources need to be focused on preparing these people with these skills so that they can get out of unemployment into these jobs. But it seems like more of the focus has just been on helping them in the form of welfare, ensuring their needs are met. We need to kind of move on from that to get past this situation where it's not strange to meet people who haven't been in work for decades because they don't have the appropriate skill set.
And at the end of the day, this doesn't seem like the easy solution. Would you agree that we need to stop throwing money, because that's kind of the easy solution?
It's the short-term solution. It's
definitely
like
the short-term.
The can down the road. Yeah.
Of course. As there's either throw money at them or just cut them all off, and those are just kind of two very simple ideas. And on that note of making an easy question hard and how to go about finding solutions for this.
Then comment on it, bring your suggestions. What do you think should be done to radically transform the welfare system in a way that can get these people into work, instead of just throwing money at them in the hope that they will shut up? While I don't believe that the solution will be in completely gutting it and just leaving them out on the streets to fend for themselves, Running Man style or something.
Or maybe comment with your easiest solution, just give us your simplest, we should give them all just one piece of pie a day, and then they can...
Yeah, but just to clarify, what we're saying here, we ain't like radical neoliberals who say get rid of the welfare system. We're just saying it does need to be changed, and changed in a way that can improve people's lives.
Kept up to the pace of real time.
Yes.
Technology and all of this business, these shenanigans that are going on.
Yes. Exactly.
So, but go ahead, hit that subscribe button.
Thank you.
shout us a message, hit us up on the Twitter.
Talk some shit in the comments. Always
We'll be
do
here.
that.
We're Tim and Tim, Tim Squared, talking about the hard answer.